Hello, I'm Katri Kolesnik, Head of Business Technology Forum. This is the second video of a series of interviews with business technology leaders. This year we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of Business Technology Standard, and we decided to interview some CIOs from some of the most successful private and public sector organizations and share it through Business Technology Forum. Our second interview is with Tommi Tuovila, the Chief Information Officer at Neste. I met Tommi in Espoo, Finland, where he's located, to talk about business technology past, present and future. Hello Tommi, and nice to have you here for this video podcast. So we will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Business Technology Standard, or IT Standard as it used to be called. And we would like to have a little discussion about things that happened during the last decade, maybe have a kind of a future outlook for things. So to start with, it would be nice to hear what kind of career you have had during this past decade.
First of all, thanks for inviting me. This is a pleasure, and it's been a pleasure to follow the Business Technology Standard or IT Standard journey from the start. So yes, currently I'm CIO at Neste. Been almost 7 years, and before that I worked in UPM in different roles in the IT management team. So being in IT leadership in a bit different type of positions over the last 10 years.
So now, if you look back and you think of where we are today, what, in your opinion, has changed?
I think that one of the big things from last decade to this decade, so from zeros to tens, is definitely that the technology has started working. So the big ERPs, they work. So you can actually technically have systems that work. So the focus is moving more from just making sure the technology works to making sure that it's utilized the best way. So I think that's one of the big changes that has happened. But then again, if you think about the daily work of IT executive or CIO, full calendar every day, full of surprises. So that hasn't changed, and of course it doesn't change that business is the key driver for the technology utilization.
So in other words, you would say that the content somehow has changed, that your focus is a bit different compared to before. But how about then the people you are working with, the stakeholders, the people you spend your time most with?
Yeah.
Has that changed?
The agenda has always been with suppliers, partners, the own team, colleagues in line of business, top management of the company. Those have been always the stakeholders, and that hasn't really changed. So all of them are in the agenda. Nowadays, you can spend more time with top management or the top leadership of the business. Sure, but then again, IT should not be keeping them awake. So IT is still enabler, indirect benefit and indirect function in that sense. The important thing is that there is the clear balance between the technology partners, the own team, line of business, having the right balance.
Thinking back, when the first version of the BT standard was published, I think there was really a need to have something that could help to bring IT closer to business, bring the understanding of what IT is all about. And maybe in those days IT was kind of mysterious and only some people knew about it. Maybe now things have changed when business is using more technology, you use it at home and so forth and so forth. But about this attitude that the business might have had before towards IT, versus now, how do you think the business nowadays sees IT?
First of all, I don't like this, the business sees IT and IT versus business thing. I don't like that thinking at all.
So it wasn't true 10 years ago either.
Maybe there was something that was in there was the massive consolidation, the efficiency increase thing that was done 2000, maybe from 2003 to 2009. There was the recession, and with the cost fight that most of the companies ended up doing. So that was kind of the last sprint of that decade, and all that consolidation led to this IT unit as a service provider, so focus on efficiency, economies of scale, and that kind of work. There was a line of business people ordering something, and then there was IT unit who's receiving the orders and fulfilling, and there was this kind of internal value chain, internal service unit, and that was, I think that was a misconception. That did a lot of bad to the whole development of IT. I think last decade there was quite a long time that we did not progress that much in utilizing IT, but created the efficiencies. And now this decade we have been able to see those efficiencies that were gained to be utilized, and then focus on IT business utilization. So the whole thing that them and us, that should not happen in the company, and not even with the partners. So even with the partners, it should be that it's not about what somebody wants, but it's what somebody needs. So that's the key thing. So in that perspective, I think the timing when IT standard came out, it was very good, because we started tackling the how IT was done, because in this industrialization there were things like ITIL had gone into one extreme, so you had to be like a really ITIL person to understand ITIL, and then everybody else was lost. Or there had to be something to describe how IT was done, and I think the IT standard has been a kind of simplification of what IT is doing. You can actually describe that to your own team, to your partners, to colleagues in business. So that has helped in defining that competency center role, which I think is now the IT's key role, to be the technology competency center in the company.
Thinking of this then, the kind of competence and the capabilities that are needed to run or to manage the technology within the company. So how do you build those capabilities within the company?
I'm a strong believer in practice, and there is clear need to understand the different parts of the game, so to say, in IT. So yes, there is the theoretical part, but practice is something that I strongly believe that let's do the difficult things, and once we succeed with them, then you create the competency, and it's about what people have done more than than just the theoretical stuff.
How to spread the knowledge, if you think of how much there are the things that business need to understand and develop their knowledge, versus how much it is that IT is there to provide this knowledge.
I think we go back to this service unit thinking. We take care of the stuff, and we try to contain it in a closed environment. And now if you think about the utilization part, now it's important to understand, let's say, two things. So one thing is that there is no one IT budget. There is two IT budgets. There is the fixed cost of IT and the variable cost of IT. So run budget and the development budget, operate budget and build budget. So there is the one where you operate the things that you have, support the things that you have, which is like you have to do something to reduce if you want to reduce, and this is like a mandatory. If you don't do anything, it keeps on coming. And then you have the costs that are the development, which is basically you decide to do something. So this is something to understand. This is the number one thing, is in enterprise IT you do both run and you do development. So this is the kind of fundamental thing. And then in terms of the operations, the efficiency levels that the current IT organizations are able to do is because we can optimize the processes, optimize the risk levels, and balance the risk cost to that level that these efficiencies that we see today with big enterprises, these are industrial scale and economies of scale approaches that are there. So it's important to understand that the operations is something that that these efficiencies that we see today are result of really industrial processes, like ideal processes, standards, and things like that.
How well do you think business understands this?
If you think of a business being somebody who is not in IT, yes, it's quite straightforward to understand. By the way, I mean, these concepts were maybe 10 years ago not that commonly understood in IT units. So, I mean, why business, why IT? I mean, is this generally understood or not?
Let's go back to the role of a CIO in a company today, and thinking about the future and maybe the new generations that are thinking about their careers. How do you see the future of CIOs? What does the work consist of? And is there any advice you would like to give to the young generation?
Yeah. So first of all, I believe that IT units in companies and bigger enterprises become more and more competency centers. So not service units, but competency centers, because in the end, somebody has to take care of the technology understanding and the knowledge. It's like, you have HR, you have legal, you have communications, you just have to have the technology competency, the digital technology competency. Somebody has to have and make sure that he or she is also interested in the technology. And I say also interested, not just interested, because everybody in enterprise have to be interested in the business the company is in. And then you have your special competency center role. And IT, in my mind, is becoming a competency center, and in the future is going to be even to that level competence center that IT is not doing all the IT in the company, but IT is providing the tools and methods and practices that the lines of business and functions are using. So from that, looking at what the CIO role means, it will be a lot wider impact that we have seen in the past, which means that it has to be from kind of direct, indirect leadership point of view, completely different. The indirect leadership has to be the strong part, leading with the right practices, leading with the vision, leading with the roadmaps. But technology. If you don't like technology, CIO job is not necessarily your job, because who is then going to look at the technology?
Yeah. Where do you get support? Where do you find advices when you need to and get support for your work?
Let's start with the company. I think it's always important to build the inside the company network, because everything is about the balance of how decisions are made, how strategy is implemented. So it's important to have that one, because that's the way you can understand what the company is doing. Then in the kind of the own skills, I'm pretty active myself in the CIO community, both local and trying to also be in an international scheme a little bit more lately, because that colleague network is really important. You can talk about how IT is done. You can look at different ways of improving the IT delivery, even with a colleague who comes from completely different industry. And I think that's important part, and that plays a big role in the agenda too, so that how to have the right network and how to share information. And I think the sharing is important, because if nobody's sharing, who is so then you cannot get back anything. So that's something. And I think the work that we have been doing with the IT standard and that has been kind of a good framework. As I said, technology is going fast. Technology advisors are critical. So there is every CIO need to have some kind of a technology advisor portfolio, team, and whose information you can utilize. I think that's critical thing.
Okay.
At least I come up with so many new things every day that there is no way I can learn them by just reading.
Okay, just one more now about how you personally balance your work life, of knowing that we all struggle with tight schedules, and so what do you do to keep up with everything?
Work is big part of life, yes, because you spend 16 hours awake, half of that working. So it's it's a big portion of it. I think one of the key things that you have to like what you do at work. So if you don't like what you do at work, that's a pain. For me, I'm a humanist. I like to see technology help people and organizations. For me, this is a fantastic job. I get a lot during the work. I mean, I don't have to go away from the work to refresh. But then again, there's limits how much your brain can do. I mean, I have been sportsman. I like sports, and if you do too much training, if you focus too much, you start losing the ability to work. You overload yourself, and I'm pretty strict with that don't do too much, and of course spend time with family. That's always a pleasure. If I'm really starting to get the overload with work, so then I take the physical exercise. So physical exercise, when mind is getting tired, then physical exercise freshes, and then if body is tired, then sleeping is good. I like sleeping, so that's that's the first resort. That's where to start.
All right. Well, that was it. Thank you
All right.
so much for this interview, Tommi.
Okay, thank you.